everyone! Today we're in a quiet space, and time is still moving even if we don't notice it. And honestly, there are moments when you might not survive. Not physically, but in the way you slowly lose control of your time. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Only if you genuinely enjoy what we're building here. And if you're listening from somewhere in the world, drop your location and your local time in the comments.
Now turn off the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for some soft background noise. And let's begin this journey together tonight.
All right, welcome back to Easy English Therapy, where we talk about real life in real English at a calm, comfortable pace.
And if this is your first time here, hi, I'm Lucy.
I'm Brian, and we're basically two people who overthink everything, so you don't have to overthink alone.
That's actually a little too accurate.
Yeah, it really is. And today's topic is something almost everyone feels, but not everyone talks about honestly.
We're talking about time. More specifically, time management in real life.
Not the perfect color-coded planner version.
Not the wake up at 5 a.m. and suddenly fix your entire life version.
Just the real version, the messy, slightly chaotic, very human version.
The version where you say, I'll just check my phone for 5 minutes, and suddenly it's been an hour?
That felt a little personal.
I'm not attacking you, I'm describing reality.
Okay, fair enough.
So before we jump into advice, let's start with something simple.
A question.
Why do we always feel like we don't have enough time?
That's a good question, because technically we all have the same 24 hours.
But somehow it never feels enough. For me, it feels like I'm always behind, like I'm chasing something I can't even see. That feeling actually has a name. Some researchers call it time scarcity perception.
It sounds very academic.
It just means you feel like time is limited, even when you technically have enough.
Yeah, that sounds exactly like me. I wake up, I check my phone, and I tell myself, today I'll be productive.
And then?
And then somehow it's already 11 a.m. I've done 2 small things, and I feel tired.
That's interesting, because productivity isn't just about time. It's also about energy.
So it's not just about how many hours we have?
Exactly. It's about how we use those hours, and what we do before we even start.
That explains a lot.
Let me guess. You wake up and immediately check your phone?
Immediately is a strong word. But yes. And then you scroll for just a few minutes, which turns into 30.
Which turns into 30.
Or more, let's be honest.
And it feels like rest, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't feel refreshed. I feel scattered.
That's because it's not real rest. It's passive distraction.
That sounds like something I should remember.
Or something you'll forget the next time you open your phone.
That's also true.
Here's something a bit interesting. People often underestimate how much time they spend on small activities by almost half.
That explains a lot. And it also makes me slightly uncomfortable.
Good. That means you're becoming aware.
I'm not sure I like that kind of awareness.
Growth is uncomfortable.
That sounds like something printed on a motivational poster.
And something you would ignore.
Probably.
But let's be real. One of the biggest problems is that we confuse being busy with being productive.
That one hurts, because I'm busy all the time.
But are you doing things that actually matter?
Okay, let's not go that deep this early.
No, let's go there.
Fine. If I'm honest, most of what I do feels urgent, but not important.
That's actually a well-known idea. Tasks can be urgent or important, and not always both.
And I'm guessing I spend most of my time in the wrong category.
Most people do. They react instead of choosing.
That explains why my day feels random instead of intentional.
Exactly. You're responding to everything instead of deciding what deserves your time.
That's kind of scary.
It is, but it's also the first step.
Awareness comes before control.
Always.
You know, this reminds me of something my grandfather used to say.
What did he say?
If you rush through the day will rush through you.
That's actually really wise.
He lived a simple life, but he always seemed calm. Older generations often understand time differently, more intentionally.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, I treat my phone like a full-time job.
Honestly, if scrolling were a career, you'd be promoted already.
Finally some recognition. That's joke number 1 for today. Probably not the last. Hopefully not. But yeah, maybe today isn't about becoming perfect. Not at all. It's about noticing where our time goes.
and slowly taking it back, one small step at a time. Because if we try to change everything overnight, we'll probably fail and feel worse. Exactly. So today, maybe we start with just one thing. What's that? Paying attention. That's a good place to start.
So after that first step, just paying attention, I start noticing something a little uncomfortable.
Let me guess, your time isn't going where you thought it was?
Exactly. It's like I feel busy all day, but when I look back, I can't clearly say what I actually did.
That's one of the most common experiences. Being busy and being productive are not the same thing.
I think I've been confusing those two for a long time.
Most people do. You can fill your day with activity and still feel like nothing meaningful happened.
That explains the weird feeling at the end of the day. Like I'm tired, but not satisfied.
That feeling has a lot to do with intention.
Intention?
Yeah, when you don't decide what matters first, everything starts to feel equally important.
And then everything becomes urgent.
Exactly. And when everything feels urgent, you lose control.
That's exactly how my day feels sometimes. Like I'm just reacting to things.
Messages, notifications, small tasks.
Random thoughts.
And suddenly, the day is gone.
That sounds a little too real.
Haha,
I know. So what's the solution?
you need to decide what actually matters before the day starts.
That sounds like planning.
It is, but not complicated planning.
Because I've tried complicated planning, it didn't last.
Exactly. That's why simple works better.
So how simple are we talking?
Just 1 to 3 important tasks for the day.
Only 3?
Yes.
That feels too little.
That's because you're used to overloading yourself.
Okay, fair point.
But here's the idea. If you complete those 3 important tasks, the day is already a success.
That actually feels lighter.
It reduces pressure.
It probably makes it easier to start.
Exactly.
I think part of the problem is that I try to do everything at once.
Multitasking?
Yeah, I'll open a document, then check my phone, then reply to a message, then go back, and repeat that cycle for hours. Yes.
There's actually a well-known idea in psychology that multitasking reduces efficiency.
Really?
I thought it made me faster. It feels faster, but it's not. Your brain is switching tasks, not doing them at the same time.
So I'm basically slowing myself down.
Exactly.
That's kind of frustrating.
It is, but it's also fixable.
How?
Focus on one task at a time.
That sounds simple, but difficult.
Because you're used to stimulation.
So I need to train my focus again?
Yes, like a muscle.
That makes sense.
Start with short periods, maybe 10, 15 minutes of focused work.
That sounds manageable.
Then take a short break.
That reminds me of something.
The idea of working in intervals?
Yeah, I've heard about that before.
It works because it matches how your brain naturally focuses.
So instead of forcing long hours,
You work in focused bursts.
that actually sounds more realistic.
It is.
Here's something I've noticed. When I start a task, I sometimes feel distracted almost immediately.
That's normal.
Like I suddenly remember something else I need to do.
That's your brain trying to escape effort.
Wow, my brain is not on my side.
Ha! It is, but it prefers comfort.
So what do I do when that happens?
Don't act on it immediately.
Just ignore it?
Not ignore, acknowledge it. Then return to your task.
That sounds like discipline.
It is, but gentle discipline.
Not forcing, just guiding.
Exactly.
Older people often seem more patient with this kind of thing.
That's true. Many of them grew up without constant distractions.
So their attention wasn't being pulled in 10 different directions?
Exactly.
Meanwhile, I get distracted by a notification or even a random thought.
That's modern life.
So maybe time management today is really attention management?
That's actually a very strong argument.
I feel smart saying that.
You should. It's a good insight.
So if I control my attention,
You control your time.
that's powerful.
It is.
Okay, let me try to summarize again.
Go ahead.
First, choose 1 to 3 important tasks.
Yes.
Then focus on one task at a time.
Correct.
Work in short, focused periods.
Exactly.
And when distractions come,
Notice them, but don't follow them.
that actually feels like a system,
A simple one.
which is probably why it works.
Exactly.
You know what's funny? I used to think I needed more time to fix my schedule.
And now,
Now, it feels like I just need to use my current time better.
that's the shift.
Not more hours.
Better focus.
I like that.
Good. Keep that idea with you.
I will.
And remember,
What?
you don't need to be perfect. Just a little more intentional than yesterday.
It feels doable.
That's all you need.
You know what's funny? Sometimes I spend more time thinking about doing something than actually doing it.
That's more common than you think.
So I'm not alone?
Definitely not.
That's comforting.
Here's a quirky fact. The brain treats unfinished tasks like open loops, so they keep pulling your attention back again and again.
That explains why I can't relax when I have something pending.
Exactly. Your mind keeps reminding you.
So finishing even a small task can reduce stress?
Yes, closing that loop gives your brain relief.
That's actually motivating.
Good. Use that.
Okay, but what about when I feel tired? Like really tired?
Then you need to ask a different question.
Which is,
Do I need rest or am I avoiding something?
oof, that's a dangerous question.
It is, because the answer is not always comfortable.
Sometimes I honestly don't know the difference.
That's normal. It takes practice.
So how do I tell?
Real fatigue feels physical. Avoidance feels emotional.
That's a useful distinction.
If you're truly tired, rest helps. If you're avoiding, rest doesn't fix the discomfort.
That explains why sometimes I rest, but still feel stressed.
Exactly, because the problem's still there.
So rest should be intentional, not just escape.
Yes, rest is part of productivity, not the opposite of it.
That's a mindset shift.
A necessary one.
I used to think resting meant I was being unproductive,
Many people think that.
but now it feels like rest is preparation.
Exactly.
So balance matters.
Always.
You know, when I look at older generations, they seem better at this.
In what way?
They work, but they also rest without guilt.
That's true. They often separate work time and rest time more clearly.
Meanwhile, I mix everything together and feel stressed all the time.
That's the modern lifestyle.
So maybe the goal isn't to do more?
But to do things with more intention.
It sounds simple, powerful.
It is.
Let me try to summarize this.
Go ahead.
When I feel resistance, I should make the task smaller.
Correct.
When I feel overwhelmed, I should start imperfectly.
Yes.
And when I feel tired, I should check if it's real fatigue or avoidance.
Exactly.
That actually gives me a clear direction.
Good. That's the goal.
Not perfect, just clear.
Clarity is enough to move forward.
And maybe that's what I've been missing,
Not more time.
but better understanding of how I use it.
Exactly.
Okay, I think I'm starting to see the pattern now.
Slowly, but surely.
And for once, it doesn't feel overwhelming.
That's how it should feel.
You know what's funny? Sometimes I spend more time thinking about doing something than actually doing it.
That's more common than you think.
So I'm not alone?
Definitely not.
That's comforting.
Here's a quirky fact. The brain treats unfinished tasks like open loops, so they keep pulling your attention back again and again.
That explains why I can't relax when I have something pending.
Exactly. Your mind keeps reminding you.
So finishing even a small task can reduce stress?
Yes, closing that loop gives your brain relief.
That's actually motivating.
Good. Use that.
Okay, but what about when I feel tired? Like really tired?
Then you need to ask a different question.
Which is,
Do I need rest or am I avoiding something?
oof, that's a dangerous question.
It is, because the answer is not always comfortable.
Sometimes I honestly don't know the difference.
That's normal. It takes practice.
So how do I tell?
Real fatigue feels physical. Avoidance feels emotional.
That's a useful distinction.
If you're truly tired, rest helps. If you're avoiding, rest doesn't fix the discomfort.
That explains why sometimes I rest, but still feel stressed.
Exactly, because the problem's still there.
So rest should be intentional, not just escape.
Yes, rest is part of productivity, not the opposite of it.
That's a mindset shift.
A necessary one.
I used to think resting meant I was being unproductive,
Many people think that.
but now it feels like rest is preparation.
Exactly.
So balance matters.
Always.
You know, when I look at older generations, they seem better at this.
In what way?
They work, but they also rest without guilt.
That's true. They often separate work time and rest time more clearly.
Meanwhile, I mix everything together and feel stressed all the time.
That's the modern lifestyle.
So maybe the goal isn't to do more?
But to do things with more intention.
It sounds simple,
powerful.
It is.
Okay, let me try to summarize this.
Go ahead.
When I feel resistance, I should make the task smaller.
Correct.
When I feel overwhelmed, I should start imperfectly.
Yes,
And when I feel tired, I should check if it's real fatigue or avoidance.
exactly.
That actually gives me a clear direction.
Good. That's the goal.
Not perfect, just clear.
Clarity is enough to move forward.
And maybe that's what I've been missing,
Not more time.
but better understanding of how I use it.
Exactly.
Okay, I think I'm starting to see the pattern now.
Slowly, but surely.
And for once, it doesn't feel overwhelming.
That's how it should feel.
So after understanding habits, I start noticing something else.
Let me guess. Boundaries?
Exactly. It feels like no matter how well I plan my time, something always interrupts it.
That's because time management isn't just about what you do.
It's also about what you allow.
Yes, what you allow into your time.
That sounds a little uncomfortable.
It is because it means sometimes you have to say no.
And I'm not very good at that.
Most people aren't.
I usually say yes first and regret it later.
That's a classic pattern
Why do we do that?
because we want to be liked. We want to avoid conflict
So we protect other people's feelings.
and sacrifice our own time.
That sounds a little sad.
It is, but it's also very common.
I think sometimes I say yes automatically. Like, I don't even think about it.
That's a habit too.
So saying yes can become automatic?
Yes, especially if you're used to people pleasing.
That word again. People pleasing.
It shows up in many areas, including time.
So I'm not just giving my energy.
You're also giving your time away.
Wow. I never thought about it like that.
Time is one of your most limited resources.
And I'm giving it away too easily?
Possibly.
Okay, so how do I fix this?
Start by pausing before you say yes.
Just like pausing before checking my phone?
Exactly, same principle.
That pause again.
It gives you a moment to choose instead of react.
So instead of automatic yes?
You ask yourself, do I actually want to do this?
That sounds simple, but also difficult.
Because you're not used to it yet.
What if the answer is no?
Then you say no.
Just like that?
Yes,
Without explaining everything?
exactly.
That feels uncomfortable.
It will feel uncomfortable at first.
I feel like I need to explain myself so people understand.
That's called over-explaining.
And I definitely do that.
Most people do when they seek approval.
So when I explain too much,
You're trying to control how others see you.
that's very accurate.
I know.
So what should I say instead?
Keep it simple. I can't make it.
That's it?
That's enough.
But what if they're disappointed?
That's okay.
Really?
Yes. Their reaction is theirs, not yours.
That's a big shift.
It is.
I think I'm so used to managing other people's feelings.
And forgetting your own.
Exactly.
But here's the truth. You can't control how everyone feels,
Even if I try?
especially if you try.
It's frustrating.
It is.
So setting boundaries means letting people feel what they feel
Yes,
and not trying to fix it immediately?
exactly.
That sounds like emotional independence.
It is.
Not just for me, but also respecting others.
Right.
You know, older people sometimes seem very calm when they say no.
That's true.
They don't over-explain. They just say it.
That comes from experience.
And confidence?
Yes. Quiet confidence.
I like that phrase.
It's the kind of confidence that doesn't need approval.
That sounds like something I want.
Then you start practicing boundaries.
Slowly?
Always slowly.
Here's something I've noticed. When I say yes to too many things, I feel drained,
That's overgiving.
giving too much of my time and energy.
Exactly.
And then I don't have enough for myself.
That's the cost.
So saying no is not selfish?
Not at all. It's necessary.
That's a new perspective for me.
A healthy one.
Okay, let me try to summarize again.
Go ahead.
Pause before saying yes.
Yes.
Ask myself what I actually want.
Correct.
And if it's no,
Say no clearly.
without over-explaining.
Exactly.
And accept that others might feel something about it.
Yes.
That feels scary, but also freeing.
That's a good sign.
Because maybe for the first time,
You're protecting your own time.
instead of giving it away automatically.
Exactly.
And that might be one of the most important parts of time management,
It is.
not just managing tasks.
But managing access to your time.
That's powerful.
Very.
Okay, I think I understand this a lot better now. Good. And strangely, it feels calmer.
That's how it should feel.
So now that I'm starting to protect my time a little better, something interesting happens.
Let me guess. You suddenly notice how you talk to yourself,
Exactly. It's like there's a voice in my head commenting on everything I do.
and it's not always kind.
Not at all. Sometimes it's actually pretty harsh.
That's more common than people admit.
Like when I don't finish something, I immediately think, why am I so lazy?
That kind of self-talk can quietly damage your motivation.
It feels like I'm trying to push myself, but it actually makes things worse.
Because criticism doesn't always create action. Sometimes it creates avoidance.
That makes sense. If I feel bad about myself, I don't feel like doing more work.
Exactly. You shut down instead of showing up.
So the way I talk to myself affects how I use my time?
Very directly.
That's something I never really connected before.
Think about it. If your internal voice is constantly negative, every task feels heavier.
Like carrying extra weight.
Exactly.
So what should I do instead? Just be positive all the time?
Not fake positivity, just more supportive language.
What does that sound like?
Instead of, I'm so lazy, try, I'm struggling to start right now.
That already feels different.
Because it's honest, but not attacking.
So I'm not ignoring the problem?
You're just changing how you respond to it.
That feels more realistic.
It is.
You know, I would never talk to a friend the way I talk to myself.
That's something many people realize.
If my friend said, I didn't finish my work today, I wouldn't say you're useless.
Exactly. You'd probably say something supportive.
Like, it's okay, you can try again tomorrow.
So why not give yourself the same respect?
That's a good question.
And an important one.
I guess I thought being hard on myself would make me stronger.
That's a common belief.
But now it feels like it just makes me tired.
Because constant pressure leads to burnout.
That explains why sometimes I feel exhausted, even when I haven't done much.
Mental pressure uses energy too.
That's something I didn't consider.
Here's an interesting observation. Older adults often develop a more forgiving inner voice over time.
Really?
Yes, with experience, they learn that being too harsh doesn't help.
That sounds like wisdom I needed earlier.
Most of us do.
So instead of waiting years, I can start now.
Exactly.
Okay, but what about when I actually make a mistake?
Then you acknowledge it, learn from it, and move on.
Without attacking myself?
Without attacking yourself.
It sounds simple, but I know it's not easy.
It takes practice.
Everything takes practice.
That's the theme today.
You know what's funny? Sometimes I waste more time thinking about my mistakes than fixing them.
That's very common.
So I'm not only losing time from the mistake,
You're also losing time from overthinking it.
that's kind of inefficient.
Very.
So better self-talk can actually save time?
Yes, because it helps you recover faster.
That's a powerful idea.
It is.
Let me try something.
Go ahead.
Instead of saying I wasted my morning, I could say my morning didn't go as planned, but I can still use the rest of the day.
That's perfect.
It feels less heavy.
And more actionable.
So the goal isn't to be perfect.
It's to be supportive enough to keep going.
I like that.
Good.
You know, this reminds me of something I've heard before.
What is it?
The way you talk to yourself becomes the way you experience your life.
That's very true.
So if I want a better life,
Start with a better inner voice.
that feels like a small change, but also a big one.
Exactly.
Here's something else. When I'm kinder to myself, I feel less pressure.
And what happens when you feel less pressure?
I actually want to do things more,
That's the difference. Motivation grows in a supportive environment.
not in a critical one.
Exactly.
So maybe the problem wasn't my discipline.
But the way you were treating yourself.
That's a big realization.
It is.
Okay, let me summarize this part.
Go ahead.
Notice how I talk to myself.
Yes.
Replace harsh thoughts with supportive ones.
Correct.
And focus on progress, not perfection.
Exactly.
That actually feels doable.
Good.
And maybe for the first time, you're working with yourself, not against yourself. That sounds like a much better system.
It is.
And it might be one of the most important parts of managing my time.
Because time is not just external,
It's also internal.
exactly.
Okay, I think I'm starting to understand this on a deeper level now. Slowly, but clearly. And it feels calmer again.
That's how it should feel.
That actually feels doable.
Good.
And maybe for the first time,
You're working with yourself, not against yourself.
that sounds like a much better system.
It is.
And it might be one of the most important parts of managing my time.
Because time is not just external.
It's also internal.
Exactly.
Okay, I think I'm starting to understand this on a deeper level now.
Slowly, but clearly.
And it feels calmer again.
That's how it should feel.
So after adjusting how I talk to myself, something else starts to shift.
Let me guess. Your expectations?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I realize I expect way too much from a single day.
That's a very common pattern.
Like, I wake up thinking I'll finish everything: work, study, exercise, organize my life.
And somehow also relax perfectly.
Yes, which never actually happens.
Because it's unrealistic.
But it feels normal to expect that.
That's because you're comparing your real life to ideal versions you see online.
Oh, that explains a lot.
You're seeing highlights, not reality.
So I'm measuring my day against something that isn't even real.
Exactly.
No wonder I feel like I'm always behind.
That feeling comes from unrealistic standards.
So what should I do? Lower my expectations?
Adjust them, not lower. Make them realistic.
What does that look like?
Accept that you have limits, energy limits, time limits, attention limits.
That sounds obvious, but I don't think I actually accept it.
Most people don't. They plan based on ideal energy, not real energy.
That explains why my plans always look good, but don't work.
Exactly.
So instead of planning for my best self,
Plan for your real self
that feels honest.
and sustainable.
You know, older people often seem more patient with themselves.
That's true.
They don't expect to do everything in one day.
Because they understand time on a longer scale.
Meanwhile, I want everything done immediately.
That's the modern mindset.
Fast results, fast progress.
And fast frustration.
Accurate.
But real growth is slower than that.
So I need to think long term?
Yes,
That's hard when everything around me feels fast.
it is, but it's necessary.
Okay, so instead of asking, what can I finish today?
Ask, what can I move forward today?
That's a big difference
It removes pressure.
and makes progress feel more possible.
Exactly.
Here's something I've noticed. When I don't meet my expectations, I feel disappointed.
That's natural.
But then I lose motivation for the next day.
Because your expectations were too high to begin with.
So I'm setting myself up to fail?
In a way, yes.
That's frustrating, but also fixable. How?
Set smaller, achievable goals.
Back to small steps again.
Always.
You know, this reminds me of something I've heard before.
What is it?
Consistency beats intensity.
That's a great one.
It sounds simple, but it's hard to follow.
Because intensity feels exciting.
And consistency feels boring?
Exactly.
But consistency actually works.
Yes.
So instead of doing a lot once,
Do a little regularly.
that feels more stable.
It is.
Here's a random thought. Sometimes I feel guilty when I don't use every minute of my day.
That's interesting.
Like if I take a break, I feel like I'm wasting time.
That's a very common belief.
But earlier we said rest is important.
Exactly.
So not every minute needs to be productive?
Not at all.
That's a relief.
Time is not just for output, it's also for recovery.
That makes sense.
There's actually an idea that overworking reduces long-term productivity.
So doing more doesn't always mean achieving more.
Exactly.
That changes how I see my day.
Good.
So balance matters again?
Always.
Let me try to summarize this part.
Go ahead.
Set realistic expectations.
Yes.
Plan based on my real energy, not ideal energy.
Correct?
Focus on small, consistent progress.
Exactly.
And allow time for rest without guilt.
Perfect.
That actually feels like a healthier way to live.
It is.
And maybe for the first time,
You're not fighting time anymore.
I'm working with it.
Exactly.
That's a really nice feeling.
It should be.
Because before this, time always felt like pressure.
And now?
Now it feels like something I can understand and slowly improve.
That's the goal.
Not control everything.
But guide it.
I like that.
Good. Keep that mindset.
I will.
So after everything we've talked about, time, habits, boundaries, self-talk, it all starts to come together in a strange way.
Yeah. It's like none of these things are separate anymore.
Exactly. At first, I thought time management was just about schedules.
And now?
Now it feels like it's about how I live, how I think, how I treat myself.
That's the deeper layer.
You know what's interesting? I used to think I needed more time.
That's what most people think.
But now I'm starting to realize
You don't need more time.
I need a better relationship with time.
Exactly.
That changes everything.
It really does.
Because before, time always felt like pressure.
Like something chasing you.
Yes, like I was always behind.
And now?
Now it feels calmer.
That's a good sign.
I'm not trying to control every minute anymore.
You're learning to guide it instead.
Slowly.
Always slowly.
There's something I've noticed recently.
What is it?
When I stop rushing, I actually do things better,
That's not surprising,
but it feels surprising.
because you're used to speed being equal to success.
Exactly.
But sometimes slower is smarter.
That sounds like something an older person would say.
And they would be right.
True.
With time, people often learn that rushing creates mistakes and stress.
And slowing down creates clarity.
Exactly.
That's something I want to remember.
You should.
There's also something else.
Go on.
I'm starting to accept that I won't always have perfect days.
That's an important realization.
Some days I'll be productive.
And some days you won't. And that's okay. Exactly.
Before, I would judge myself for that.
And now?
Now, I just notice it.
That's growth.
Instead of saying I failed today,
You say,
today was different.
that's a much healthier perspective.
It feels lighter.
Because you're not carrying unnecessary pressure.
You know, there's a debate I've heard before.
What kind of debate?
Whether time management is about discipline or awareness.
That's an interesting one.
I used to think it was all discipline.
And now?
Now I think awareness matters more.
I agree.
Because once you're aware,
Your actions start to change naturally.
exactly.
Discipline still matters.
But without awareness, it feels forced.
And exhausting.
Very exhausting.
So awareness makes everything smoother.
Like understanding when I need rest,
Or when you're overthinking.
or when I'm giving too much of my time away.
That's the key.
I think one of the biggest lessons for me is this:
What is it?
I don't have to earn my rest.
That's a powerful one.
I used to think rest was a reward,
Something you get after working hard.
but now I see it differently.
How so?
Rest is part of the process.
Exactly.
Without rest, everything else falls apart.
That's true.
It's funny, something so simple took so long to understand.
That's how learning works.
Slowly, over time.
Always.
And I think I'm starting to trust that process.
That's a good place to be.
Not rushing, not forcing,
Just moving forward.
Step by step.
Exactly.
If I look back now,
What do you see?
I see someone who was always chasing time.
And now?
Now, I'm walking with it.
That's a beautiful shift.
It really is.
And it didn't happen all at once.
No, just small changes
Small, consistent changes.
that added up.
Exactly.
So maybe that's the final idea.
What is it?
You don't need to fix everything today
You just need to start
and keep going.
at your own pace.
That feels enough.
Because it is enough.
Yeah, it really is.
It feels quieter now, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like everything is slowing down a little.
The thoughts that were rushing earlier, they're not as loud anymore.
They're softer now. Like waves settling after a long day.
I like that image.
Me too.
And there's no pressure here. No need to rush, no need to prove anything.
Just being here is enough.
Exactly.
I think that's something we often forget.
That we don't always have to chase time.
Yeah, sometimes we can just sit with it.
One moment at a time.
And maybe let things feel a little lighter.
Even if nothing is perfect.
Because it doesn't have to be.
Your day doesn't have to be perfect.
Your progress doesn't have to be fast.
Even a small step forward is still movement.
And rest.
Rest is part of that movement too.
I think a lot of people forget that.
Yeah, including us sometimes.
Definitely. And if your mind starts to wander,
That's okay.
you don't have to hold on to every thought.
Just let them pass.
Like soft background noise fading away.
That sounds really peaceful.
It is. You've done enough for today.
More than enough.
And wherever you are right now,
Whatever time it is.
this moment is allowed to be quiet,
Allowed to be slow.
allowed to be yours.
So maybe
You can let go a little.
let your thoughts settle.
Let your breathing soften.
And as everything becomes a little more still,
We'll gently leave you here.
to rest.
Take care. And we'll see you in the next video.